Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 411 for the 4th of September 2016. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia. And for those people who care, it's a nice, sort of pleasant day. The sun is out. It's a little bit warm, but that's okay. And lots of people out in the city enjoying the warm weather. Coming up on this week's episode, we chat to an old friend of the Skeptic Zone, Dr Angie Mattke. She is an emergency physician in the United States. She sort of gets posted around and does night shifts around the place. She is currently at DragonCon, the wonderful DragonCon in Atlanta, Georgia, the place in 2008 where the Skeptic Zone was launched. Now, luckily for us, Angie gave a talk at DragonCon at the Skeptrack. Hello to Derek Colanduno, who runs that. And even luckier, she had it live streamed. Her talk was all about alternative medicine, and it was quite a tour de force, really, because she managed to cover, and I made a list, all sorts of things from vitalism to acupuncture to naturopathy to chiropractic in her talk, and then had Q&A from the audience. Anyway, we'll be catching up with Angie in just a moment as she dashes around DragonCon. It's very late at night. And she's going to fill us in on her talk and the goings-on at this wonderful science fiction and fantasy convention. But importantly for skeptics, there's a strong skeptical, what they call the skeptic track there, and a science track, and I think an astronomy track, all sorts of good science happening in Atlanta, Georgia. Following that, Maynard's spooky action, once again back at the Australian Museum. Maynard's going to be chatting to Rachel Robertson, who was involved in demonstrating robots, little sort of running around the floor type robots, sort of like BB-8 from Star Wars that we came across as we were there to perform the Mystery Investigator show. A fun little interesting interview all about robots. Following that, it's the Raw Skeptic Report with Heidi Robertson. Heidi's going to be talking to Michelle Franklin from Darwin Skeptics, who came down to visit Brisbane recently to visit the or attend and speak at the Brisbane Skepticamp. Now, she's going to be talking all about weeds and finding natural remedies to environmental predators. Interesting science going on with Michelle Franklin. Then to round off the show, Maynard heads back to Skeptics in the pub here in Sydney and asks the big question, what do pub goers think quantum is? What does quantum mean? How can it be used? What's the science behind it? How is it misused or used in advertising? Do you know? If I was to come to you on the street and say, hello, Richard Saunders here from the Skeptic Zone podcast, what do you think quantum means? You might be struggling for an answer. Lots of people think it means one thing, especially the woo crowd, especially those flogging pseudoscience love to use the word quantum. Anyway, we're going to find out what people going to Skeptics in the pub think, and then Maynard will chat to Ian Bryce, the chief investigator of Australian Skeptics, who was there to give a talk about what quantum is and quantum energies and all this sort of thing. Now, just before we get stuck into this episode, hear this nice music coming up now? That's just delightful. That is the theme to a new podcast I'd love to tell you about. It's called the Blue Castle Podcast, and it's all about women in the inner west area of Sydney being interviewed about turning their artistic endeavours and their artistic skill into a business. Now, you may not think that's got a lot to do with skepticism. Well, it hasn't. But this podcast is produced by my sisters, Elizabeth Saunders and Margaret Adam. Their very first podcast. I'm very proud of them for putting this together. I gave a little bit of help on the side, but if you'd like to check it out, just visit thebluecastle.libsyn.com and I'll put a link in the show notes. Congratulations, sisters Elizabeth and Margaret. Well done, and I look forward to many more episodes. It's quite an interesting podcast. It's all about women turning their artistic endeavours into a business. Well, that's enough from me at the moment. I'm going to run downstairs, open the cupboard. Let me see this week. Let me have a think. Crusty sourdough bread. And I don't get any kickbacks from this. The Burke Street Bakery in Sydney, they do make good sourdough bread, just like the stuff you get in San Francisco. And I think I'll just have that lightly toasted and drizzle some honey on top. Nice and simple. Yum. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. And joining me now on the line all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, where DragonCon is underway as we speak, it's an old friend of the Skeptic Zone, Dr Angie Mattke. Hello!
Hi, Richard!
Hi!
Hi, everybody!
You sound like you're having a great time, and I know that you're still deeply entrenched right now in the festivities and the fun of DragonCon.
Oh my goodness, it's so much fun. I really encourage anyone who can get to the States to come to DragonCon. Please, please, please come. It is fantastic. Every possible permutation of pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, everything you could possibly imagine is represented here. It is so much fun. It
is. And the Skeptic Zone actually was launched at DragonCon in 2008. The very first episode was launched from the Skeptic track there. And before we get on to what I'd like to talk to you about was your presentation about alternative medicine and so forth. How is the Skeptic track going this year?
It is going magnificently, Richard. We have had a very exciting set of presentations from new presenters. We've had very good response from many different people. It's much bigger. It's taken over much more of the hotel than before, and it's just been spectacular. We've had the best time, learned so much, and can't wait for next year. And I'm already only halfway through this year. So,
wow, that's look. I better start saving right now for 2017. I think. Well, I noticed on the bill there are such people.
You definitely better come.
I better. There, I noticed the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe were there.
They are here. They're doing a special presentation tonight. That's a paid service. I'm not at that one. Not this time, but tomorrow they'll be doing a live podcast. I can't wait to see it. It's so much fun to see them interact in person, partly because you get to see their facial expressions when someone says something funny, but also because you get to see the parts that get edited out, which makes the podcast so much more fun.
Yes, I've been lucky enough to be a guest rogue from time to time, and quite a lot gets chopped out. Look, it sounds like DragonCon is every bit as wonderful as I remembered. I haven't been there for some time. I think 2010 was the last time I was there. But what I wanted to have a little chat to you about was that you did a really good thing, and I'm so pleased you did. You gave a talk at DragonCon, which is fantastic, but you had somebody sitting in the audience live streaming your talk to Facebook, which means it's captured there and it's up now for the world to see. And I was so impressed. Your talk was all about the different forms of alternative medicine, and you squeezed so much into your talk, so many modalities, everything from... I made a list. Vitalism, humours, energy medicine, homeopathy, qi, acupuncture, cupping, applied kinesiology, naturopathy, Reiki, chiropractic, and you even mentioned a quote by Carl Sagan in there. It was just incredible. What I'd like to ask you about, one of the very first things you mentioned was vitalism. Can you tell me what exactly that means?
Well, vitalism is sort of a belief that there is some magical quantity that separates us from non-living things. So there is some magical energy that imbues all of us. That's sort of the idea behind that. And unfortunately, it actually means that people draw false conclusions when it comes to how to treat illnesses and what the actual source of illnesses are. It was developed at a time before there was a true understanding of germ theory, a very good understanding of biology, physics, chemistry, and many other of the sciences that we find that we need now to practice good medicine. And so a lot of these things that use the term energy are using the term in an erroneous fashion. So if you use the term energy and you can substitute the capacity to do work, then the term energy actually makes sense. But if you find that people are referring to energy in sort of this vague, nebulous cloud sense, then they don't really understand what the word means.
Absolutely right. And I think our friend Brian Dunning makes that point in his documentary, Here Be Dragons.
Absolutely. I stole it from him 100%. I loved his phrasing of it so much that I completely stole it from him, and I did give him credit in the lecture.
Now, what else you were talking about? Talking about energy, you were talking about various forms of energy medicine, which sort of brings us on to homeopathy. And what I loved about your talk about homeopathy is that it got laughter from the audience, which I think was just pretty apt.
Well, it is so laughable. It's sad to me that that the misunderstanding of this, I can't even characterize it. I can't characterize it as anything other than magical thinking, because it relies on such unscientific statements and an understanding of how medicine actually works. It completely violates physics. It completely violates everything we know about organic chemistry, about chemistry. And there is no possible way it could work.
Yeah, that's something skeptics have been certainly saying for a very long time.
Absolutely.
Yes, it was pleasing, I guess, in a way to see or to hear you getting giggles and laughter from the audience. Let me take you now to something that is a bit of a quandary and has been for many years. Why is acupuncture so accepted in our society as something that's real?
That's a really good question. I wish I knew the answer to that. I think that part of it has to do with the appeal to this sort of ancient wisdom. There is sort of a trope in society where things that are ancient are necessarily better. And unfortunately, that means that things that were developed before in a good understanding of biology and chemistry and physics and all the things I just mentioned, they are venerated as ancient wisdom, when unfortunately it's often magical thinking again.
Yeah. There's an old expression: how can you tell ancient wisdom from ancient stupidity? I quite like that.
That's a good phrase. I like that.
You can use it. Use it in your next talk.
I'll totally steal that from you.
No, it was a really good talk, and I'm pleased that you put it up online. And it was good too because after the talk, and which was recorded, was a Q&A, and you had various questions from the audience. And it was interesting that one of the people who was questioning you was speaking from what she considers to be her success in when she had acupuncture done to herself. So she was coming from the point of view of, oh, it worked for me. So how can you, up there on the stage, knock something when I know it worked for me? But I think we get that quite a lot, don't we?
Well, we certainly do. And what I started my talk with was a discussion of the natural disease process. And that means that problems have a waxing and waning course. And many times when we use an intervention when the pain is at its worst or when the problem is at its worst, and we see an improvement, we falsely credit the intervention with the improvement when we either would have improved already anyway, regardless of the intervention. It could be that the intervention did it, or it could have been something that happened even days before, any of the other treatments they had tried. And so there is a natural course. People have good days and bad days. And if you intervene on a bad day, that doesn't mean that the next good day was because of your intervention. And we lose sight of that because we just aren't programmed to look for that, unfortunately. So keeping a symptom diary is going to be critically important to help tease out what was a true response from what was coincidence or our poor, faulty memory, because we do have bad memories about things. We think that there was a relationship and there wasn't really. So she kept saying, I don't remember. And she doesn't remember. And it's not that she's lying. I don't believe that she's lying at all. I think she may be mistaken about the timing. But if she had kept a symptom diary, it may have been that she noticed that there was some correlation that she hadn't noticed before.
You're most probably right, of course. And when it comes to something like acupuncture, then we get to the reasoning, so-called reasoning behind it, and which revolves around these mystical energies and lines or channels in the body which simply don't exist. It falls apart. But yes, people who have undergone it and consider it helped them are they're almost in a different state of mind to the rest of us, I think. But in a way, it's understandable.
I agree. And there isn't any evidence from meridians. And as a physician, I would love to have different or additional treatment options for my patients. But unfortunately, using these treatments may cause additional harm for many reasons, not the least of which that sticking needles in someone's body when they don't need to have needles there can introduce all sorts of trouble. You could collapse a lung, you can cause bleeding, you can cause infection, you can cause heart infection. It's a terrible thing. You don't want to introduce a needle when you don't have to.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's a good philosophy to have in life, I think. Very well said. Well, look, Angie, I won't keep you anymore. I know that you're sort of dashed out of one room and you're in another to give me a quick interview. I wish I could be at DragonCon. I miss it very much, partly because of the fun. And it's just wonderful, silly fun with costumes and all sorts of characters and stars from science fiction and fantasy. But it is also a wonderful outreach opportunity. And please give my best to Derek Colanduno, who once again is doing a fantastic job this year.
Oh, I will let him know that you said so, and we miss you desperately. So please make arrangements to come in 2017. We need you to be here and continue the outreach. And it really is a wonderful opportunity. I mean, just because we have signs out where people who wouldn't ordinarily become involved with skepticism can see them. That's how I became involved in skepticism, is by walking past the Skeptrack. I saw the sign.
In fact, that's the first time I met you. And believe it or not,
it is.
From way back from either 2008 or 2009, I have a photograph I took of the general audience in Skeptrack, and there you are.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we're not going to show that one to anybody.
All right.
But thank you so much for having me again, and I can't wait to see y'all in Australia. I'm coming to the Australian Skeptics with my daughter.
Oh,
so
right.
I can't wait to come to Melbourne.
The convention coming up. Well, that'll be a real treat. But Angie, look, you better get back to the fun and festivities, and thank you for sparing some time to talk to the Skeptic Zone.
Thanks so much, Richard. Bye-bye.
Hi, this is Carrie Poppy.
I'm Ross Blotcher.
Oh, hey, Ross.
Hey, we're from a podcast called
Oh No, Ross and Carrie.
We find out what happens when you show up and ask questions.
We've hung out with the Kabbalists.
The Mormons.
We've gone and gotten ear candles.
Gone to the Sikhs.
We show up so you don't have to.
So find out where we're going next.
We'll even have special episodes where we have famous guests like Brian Dalton from Mr. Deity.
You heard that awesome theme music? He wrote that.
You should come visit us at onopodcast.com or
facebook.com/onrack.
What the hell's OnRack, Ross?
ONRAC.
Oh no, Ross and Carrie.
That's our show.
That's so smart. Come join us.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Oh, look, and we've got some robots happening here. These are freestanding, sort of rolling, steroid-type robots. And I know you're not from this company, but what are you doing here today?
I'm Rachel Robertson from Sphero.
You got a degree?
Yes, I have.
Well, no, I didn't ask that in an accusatory way.
Yeah.
I was just asking.
I have, but not from this country.
Oh, really?
I've got one from England. Can you tell the dodgy accent?
Oh, right.
Yeah,
so an English one, right? So do you have to stay there as long to study, or not, or just come in for the weekend? They go, oh, look, you're good to go.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just write on it whatever you want to be. Biology. So what did you get it in, by the way?
No, I did one in comms and communications, so not science, I'm afraid to say, but yeah, communications.
Okay, well, I mean, we need science communicators, and I guess that's a good degree to have if that's what you're going to do.
That's it. We can join them together. You need communicators and scientists work together.
Unlike most public relations, science is not a field where it's often a good idea to make stuff up. in the entertainment field, oh yeah, that's a fantastic
It's a massive advantage in our area. Well, I work for Sphero. Sphero produce connected toys, and they're basically little robots in balls and cylinders, and you can code and learn. You can learn to code and program using these little balls. So basically you can either drive them, but then you can learn to code and program them. So they've got lots of sensors in them. So they've got temperature sensors and collision sensors. You can change their colour, all of them.
And what sort of coding language do they use?
They use Oval.
Okay.
Yeah.
How new is that one?
It's pretty new because it was actually created by Sphero. So it was created by them in, I think, 2012. And then they've used that to develop all of their products.
And how complicated can the code go? Can you do really complicated things, or is it based for someone to start out with?
No, it goes all the way through. So right from the very beginning, so you can do drag and drop coding for little kids that are just learning the basics, right the way through to actual full kind of hacking, where you can actually hack into the software and make it do different things, and you can actually use the Oval code to
What's the most complicated thing you've seen an Oval code used for?
Oh, God. I think you probably have to ask the guys in Boulder that.
Okay.
We've seen people do things like planetary. So we've seen them code like full dance routines. So they'll have 100 different spheros all operating at the same time, and then all synchronized to music and things like that. We've seen people build the solar system using spheros. So they program them to go at the right speed around the sun. And so rather than using a kind of boring styrofoam, they can actually show a model of it. So they're used in lots of different ways.
And of course, as we're talking here, the robots are running around our feet and all that sort of thing. What do the kids seem to be getting most excited about with these robots? And are they using the Wi-Fi or the Bluetooth on their phone to control them?
It's Bluetooth, so it's all Bluetooth connected, so you just tap and connect. They're really excited. I think they're just really excited about the fact that you can drive them and that they're little robots. So we're getting some kids that are actually learning to actually do the coding aspect, and then some that are just really enjoying kind of controlling and changing the colours and seeing how the robot works inside. So
and of course, how much are these little robots? Are they quite inexpensive or not?
Well, so you've got all the way from the Ollie, which is the black cylinder one that tumbles. So that one's $169.99, and then you go through to the BB-8, which is $249.99, which is the Star Wars one, but that's got lots of Star Wars stuff.
And of course, with kids, how indestructible are they? Because kids like to put this sort of thing through a lot. They like to give it to the dog and run around.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and lots of testing has been done. They're really indestructible, so you could actually stand your whole body weight on them and they wouldn't break. They're made of polycarbonate, and then they've put a UV coating around them, so that they're really... We've actually done tests where we've stood at the top of a building and dropped them from the top of a building, and they haven't broken.
Was that a deliberate test, or someone just made a mistake?
Yeah, exactly. Somebody threw it out the window and went, oh, look. Yeah.
I'm looking at them, I'm thinking, is there an aqua version of these?
The Spark, is completely waterproof and actually floats in water, so you can drive it in water. So we've had kids that have created rafts using, straws and bubble pop and things like that, and then they create rafts, and then they motorise the raft using the Spark.
Okay. And what would be the difference between coding this kind of thing and using something like a Raspberry Pi kind of situation, which is more open source?
Yeah, I think that the nice thing about this is a completely sort of shared platform, and it's a really simple, straightforward drag and drop. I don't know.
That's probably his advantage, yes.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, look, I'll leave you to it here because all these kids are wanting to play, and have a great afternoon. What's been the reaction from the kids? They're pretty keen to get their hands on this, aren't they?
It's been absolutely overwhelming. We were just saying we need to come back with more. So we've learned that we need more. So everybody's loved it.
You've only got like 4 or 5 and they're there, right?
I know, and they've run out of steam a bit. So, we're going to come back with more. But, no, amazing reaction. So really overwhelming. Brilliant.
Have a good time here at the Australian Museum. Enjoy Science Week.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We've just opened a Quirkology exhibition at Edinburgh's Museum of Childhood. You can shrink in size, see the amazing cylinders to squares illusion live, watch all your favourite Quirkology clips, create your own illusions, be levitated by magician David Copperfield, and lots more. We can take the exhibition anywhere, so if you're a museum, science centre, shopping mall or school, get in touch.
For more information, visit www.quirkology.com.
It's the Raw Skeptic Report with Heidi Robertson.
I'm here with Michelle Franklin, who has been on the Skeptic Zone previously. In case listeners don't remember you, who are you and why are you here at Skepticamp?
I'm Michelle Franklin. I'm here because they didn't tell me I couldn't be, so I came. I live in Darwin and one of the 2 regular members of the Darwin Skeptics, and I've come down to visit family and hang out with skeptics.
And you just gave a very interesting talk on your area of expertise, which is biocontrol. You were telling me before that your actual job title is...
Weed scientist.
I just love that. Weed scientist. It's fabulous. So tell us what's involved in your day-to-day work up in the Northern Territory.
It can be anything from sitting at a computer running risk assessments on potential new weeds, trawling the internet for information and reading papers, to the next day driving out to remote billabongs and dropping weevils in the water and counting caterpillars that fall out of trees. I've actually spent quite a lot of time just bashing trees with big sticks and counting what falls out of them.
Oh, that sounds like a diverse kind of a job. And you're also saying that a lot of your job is knowing how to not get yourself bogged, and if you do get bogged, knowing how to get out of it. Yeah,
there's a few of our locations are a little bit remote, so some of them involve a few tricks to get to them. There's also quite a few animals that will eat you en route, so a big part of it is learning how not to be eaten in your general workday.
Yes, that would be a good skill to have. Now, tell us, when does a weed become a weed? When is a weed classified as a weed, and for what reason?
So a weed is basically a plant in the wrong place that is causing a problem. So if there's an exotic plant brought into Australia, planted in a garden and it looks pretty and doesn't hurt anybody, that's just an introduced plant. Where it becomes a weed is if it causes problems. So the ones that become problems are the ones that breed fast, the ones that invade, the ones that spread, or the ones that are just difficult to kill. So if they spread fast and are difficult to get rid of, we classify them as weeds, and we set up laws that they have to be controlled, and we work on different ways to control them.
Okay, and in your talk you talked specifically about a weed, is this the right pronunciation? Salvinia?
Salvinia, yeah.
So tell us about your work with Salvinia.
So it's a water weed, so it grows on the surface of billabongs. It's been managed through biocontrol for about 30 years now, and there's a bit of a delicate balance between the number of Salvinia plants and the number of weevils, and if you get too many weevils, the Salvinia dies off and then the weevils die off because they can't live without the Salvinia. So there's been a long-term effort by the rangers who manage the billabongs to reintroduce the weevils when they disappear, and to just keep an eye on the Salvinia levels and make sure that it's being kept in check by these weevils.
So the weevils are the biocontrol that you're working on at the moment. A lot of your talk was focusing on the fear that the general public has around biocontrol measures. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
So basically the fear comes from people not knowing what biocontrol is, and the immediate response when you hear biocontrol is to think of cane toads and assume that scientists are going to introduce something bad and it's going to destroy the world. So most of our publicity is damage control, explaining to people that we're not going to ruin everything by introducing this weevil, and that we have actually done the research and it's a safe weevil to introduce.
What are some of the considerations by you and other people in the field when you are looking at introducing a form of biocontrol?
So there's two basic tests that you need to run. The first one is finding out whether the agent is dependent on its host. So you put it in a cage with that host and see if it can reproduce, do a full life cycle on it, and then you put it in a cage with other plants that are similar to that host and see if it dies on those plants. And basically, if there's anything else in Australia that can host this species, then it can't be used because it's capable of surviving without the weed. And then the second thing that you want to test is the effect that it might have if it's already surviving on one host. Can it also impact on other things? So you'll put it in a cage with two different species and see if it will move over and harm other things.
So there's a lot of preparation that goes into these things before something is just released out into the wild, so to speak.
Yeah, there's many years. That's all done here in Brisbane, just down the road at the Eco-Sciences Precinct. They've got a big biocontrol facility there where the CSIRO does most of that work, and they spend years researching each potential agent before it's given the go-ahead to be released, and then they send it up to us and we start distributing.
You were saying that a lot was learned by the whole cane toad experience, and that people really shouldn't have the fear based on that cane toad experience.
Yeah, so the fear comes from the fact that we haven't spoken enough about biocontrol, and it's basically the flagship species that everybody goes to. When you hear biocontrol, you think cane toad. If you're lucky, maybe you'll think about rabbits and cactuses, but that's pretty much all that people know about. And I mean, I'm working on about 7 or 8 different species right now, and I've only been doing this for a year, and it's been going for decades, and there's every couple of years a new species is introduced, and some of them fail, which means that they just die off and nothing happens, and some of them succeed and are being used, like the weevil in the Salvinia is being used successfully for the last 30 years, and I didn't know about it until I started this job. So we need to discuss these things publicly and make it known that biocontrol is a common thing that we do, and we do it safely.
And what were you saying regards the a failure of a biocontrol, the definition you now use as a failure?
So a good example of a failure is a particular little beetle that was released a few years ago to control bellyache bush. They did all the research. The beetle did everything we needed it to do. It would breed on the bellyache bush. It couldn't survive on anything else. It didn't impact anything else. We took the beetle out into the wild, released it. Every beetle flew in a different direction, and they never bred in the wild. So that's what a biocontrol failure is, and there's just no chance of it breeding on anything else because all of those safety protocols were kept in check at the beginning to make sure that there was no risk.
So there were no negative impacts. It was a failure, but with no negative impacts.
Yeah, so the only negative outcome there is the wasted time. So that's the only drawback, is that you've put some resources into something that didn't work.
And finally, and this was an audience question as well, will we ever get rid of the cane toad?
Never going to happen. It's just not feasible. There's no biocontrol that will ever wipe anything out. So it's possible that something will come along in the future that will drastically reduce numbers, but it won't wipe them out. It'll just reduce numbers. They're just way too successful to feasibly think about eradication. So what we need to look at with the cane toad is, are there any specific impacts that we can mitigate? So is there a particular area we can protect? We can actually remove tadpoles from one pond or remove adults from one area and protect specific areas, and we can manage them and keep their numbers low. Maybe in the future we will get some wonderful biocontrol that will seriously reduce their numbers, but it's not feasible to think about eradicating them.
Okay, well, thank you, Michelle. It was a very interesting talk. And if people want to get in touch with you or see more of what you're doing, where can they find you?
Darwin Skeptics, my little plug that I like to put at the end of everything. We have a Facebook group. It's just the Darwin Skeptics in the Facebook group sections. Join. We take anybody as long as you're nice to us, and we take the ones who are mean to us as well. Join in the conversation and say hello. We also have an email address, which is just darwinskeptics@gmail.com, but nobody uses email anymore. Facebook's the way that we interact.
So if you've got any questions about biocontrol measures, you know where to get in touch with Michelle. Thank you. We'll better go back in and hear the rest of the speakers.
Thank you.
The Australian Skeptics National Convention will be held in Melbourne from the 25th to the 27th of November 2016. Speakers will include Lawrence Krauss, Edzard Ernst, Harriet Hall, Michael Marshall, Mel Thompson, Lynn Kelly, Ken Harvey, Lara Wood and Deanne Carson, Joe Alabaster, Peter Bowditch, Ross Balch, Emma Miley, Mal Vickers, and more to be announced. The theme of this year's conference is Good Thinking. For more information and to get your tickets and tickets for the annual dinner, visit www.convention.skeptics.com.au.
Let us take you into a journey into the small, the very small, the smallest realms of the imagination where things don't happen as they seemingly logically should. That's right. We're investigating the quantum world here at Skeptics in the Pub, where things get smaller and smaller and smaller as the night gets longer and longer and longer. And someone who's getting taller and taller and taller is Richard Saunders.
I'm glad to hear that. What about this expression we hear, quantum leap, is used all the time when people say, so-and-so has made a quantum leap, or this company's about to make a quantum leap, or scientists have made a quantum leap. And what they mean, of course, is a gigantic stride forward. But the nitpickers will say, well, wait a minute, quantum's tiny.
Well, I thought, though, quantum leap would mean an unexpected leap. So it might have gone in a direction that wasn't expected and gone that way, you see.
I've never heard it used like that before. It's always used in press releases or something like that. To mean a huge leap. And then the nitpickers say, oh, no, it's very tiny. But I think in common usage, when people say a quantum leap, everybody knows what they mean.
Yeah, they think about the guy who went on to play the captain in Enterprise.
That's right, Scott Bakula. Yeah. He made a few quantum leaps.
And I still was not happy with the final episode of Quantum Leap. I was not happy with the way that finished.
I know, right? I know.
Look, and people out there, you know. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Quantum Leap, the whole series, it's quite fun. We enjoyed it, but the last episode was sort of like, what? What? It was sort of a bit like Blake 7, you know?
Yeah. But we're here because there's going to be some chatting about quantum in all aspects from Ian Bryce, our guy who is our resident rocket scientist.
Yeah, the chief investigator for Australian Skeptics. He'll be here soon. He's giving a talk tonight here at Skeptics in the Pub about quantum energies and what is quantum and things like that, which I'll enjoy listening to. Now, some years ago, in fact, I was doing some research for Dr. Rachel, a story Dr. Rachel was following up, and she wanted to know all about quantum. And I remember cramming one afternoon to try to find out as much about quantum and what it means as I could. I don't think you can learn much in one afternoon. But that's the question we're going to be posing tonight. What do people think quantum is?
Because you hear it being used in all sorts of things. Of course, you will often hear it used as part of advertising for something. I think even one of the razors now is a quantum razor.
A quantum razor?
What? So when you shave, it shaves your face and maybe other parts of your body unexpectedly.
It shaves your face and your counterpart's face in other universes at the same time.
Now that I would pay money for that.
So, because if you wake up clean shaven, it means you in another universe has got their very own quantum razor.
And we must remind people that that's where part of the quantum action is what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. Yes.
Now, you and I came up with that name years ago over lunch in a pub.
Yeah. Oh, good, because I just heard it in something and I knew nothing about it. I thought, that sounds good.
Maynard's spooky action at a distance. That's where we came up with the name. We were having lunch with Steve and Casey the Wonder Dog.
That's right, Steve and Casey the Wonder Dog, and we came up with that. But we're actually going to be asking a few people what they think when they hear it tonight. And perhaps even when I talk to Ian Bryce, he will actually explain it to the satisfaction of the listener.
Well, he should. And if you don't come or you haven't been to a Skeptics in the Pub, this is just the place you can ask these sort of questions. Now, it's early yet. People are sort of just making their way into the room we have here in the Crown Hotel in Sydney, and the tables are ready. But we might be able to ask some people before the talk what they think quantum means, and maybe we can to shed some light on this. I know when Ian Bryce gets here, he'll be able to tell us, I think.
And a reminder that next Skeptic in the Pub, there's going to be a live performance. We're going to do this show live.
Yeah, the Skeptic Zone Live. That'll be the first Thursday of October the 6th, here in Sydney. There'll be a Skeptic Zone Live. It won't be as big a do as last year, because last year we had the whole team.
And this year, no women are turning up. None of the female members of the cast are turning up. We've asked them all, and they're either interstate or indisposed.
Yes, sadly, it looks like that, because we've got most of the people who work on the show are, in fact, women, as it happens. But I think just by bad circumstance and luck and things, they will be indisposed or overseas or something crazy like that. But we've still got a month. Maybe we can do something. But no, there'll be a live Skeptic Zone. You and I hope Stefan and Iran will be here. We'll read our pieces, but we'll have not phone in. What do they call it? Pre-records from some of our other reporters.
Yeah. Right now, let's see what's happening tonight at Skeptics in the Pub. Look, I've got some people that have turned up here fairly early. Here, in fact, she started answering the question before I even asked it. When you hear the word quantum, what do you mean when you might hear it in some advertising or even when it's used generally? What do you think it's assumed to mean?
Something you really don't understand.
That's a very concise and to-the-point answer. How do you think it's normally used in normal conversation or in advertising?
I would use it as meaning the total of.
Okay. So would you use that in a sentence for the listener to explain to the listener, as in?
The quantum of the number of cars on the road might be, or the total of the number of cars.
Yeah. And that is grammatically accurate, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is, yes.
Good.
I think so.
That's good. All right, this is Skeptics, is it? Yeah, it is indeed. Oh, good, you're just in time here. Look, I've just turned up. A man with a beer in his hand always turns up at Skeptics in the Pub. It's always a good thing. Now, for the Skeptic Zone...
About priorities, right?
It all is about priorities. You never know. If you don't know what's going on, have a drink. Now, we're asking tonight, when you hear the word quantum, which we're going to be having a chat about later here, it's used in so many ways. In advertising, people kind of sling it around like any old word. What does it mean to you or what do you think they're trying to get across when they use it?
It's a discrete unit of... material.
Okay. By discrete, you mean very small?
Both. Well, I think it's... by discrete, I mean it's not connected to anything else.
Okay, right you go. So if they said it's a quantum breakthrough in hair care, what do they mean? What do they mean there? Because I have heard that and I've gone, what?
Yeah, I couldn't really answer that.
No, I don't think anyone can. I think that's exactly why they say it.
It's probably a reference to quantum physics, and
that even they don't understand.
Yeah, but the probability. Well, it's probably more to do with the success that they've had with quantum physics in understanding the world around us and making quite large breakthroughs in science. So I would argue that. Probably by a quantum breakthrough, they're actually referring to the type of breakthroughs that quantum physics has had.
In the hair?
In their research and development.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, yes. Look, when people in advertising or anywhere generally invoke the word quantum, what do you think they're trying to get across? What do you think they mean?
Something trendy, something it's got authority, it must be really good, it's a step up.
Yeah, I'd go with that's what they're trying to do. What do you think they're trying to say to you when they invoke the word quantum, as in a great breakthrough in quantum hairdressing, for example?
Quasi-scientific background with latest research technology, claiming expertise that doesn't exist.
Wow, are you a copywriter in your spare time? That's good. That fits in well. That's a good one. Now, what do you hear in your brain when they go, hey, it's a quantum leap?
My understanding is that they think that quantum means something big, but my understanding is that it actually is something not so big at all.
Yes.
And that's so they say something is a quantum leap in this, thinking it's a big change or a big improvement or a big advance or whatever in what it might be that they're trying to promote.
I've heard Michio Kaiko, I think Kaiko his name is, from the University of New York. He says that whenever people invoke the word quantum, it normally means that they have no idea what they're invoking.
I think that'd be pretty right. And I've just used the word quantum, and I think that just applies to me.
But it's in an answer, that's okay. You're making no claim. You're making no testable claim, sir.
No testable claim at all.
Cool. Thank you. Look, you've got to say, if you want to know about something, you should ask someone who spent a bit of time at university looking at it. And we've got our Register Rocket Science here, Ian Bryce. How are you, Ian?
Oh, good evening, Maynard.
I see you've got the scientist's crazy hair tonight too. It looks good. Yeah. Oh, look, it's okay. How's your hand there? You hurt your hand, sir.
Yes, repairing my roof.
So
something that scientists usually do.
No. Was there an issue with tetanus with that? Did they have to give you a shot after that?
No, I didn't worry about that. I just got on with the job.
Okay. Now, you're talking about quantum tonight, and I've been asking people here what they think when they hear the word quantum invoked usually by journalists or in advertising and that sort of thing. And we've got a range of answers. So what do you think they should be saying when they say we've got a quantum leap in hair care products or dash hounds or cats? What do they mean?
Okay, well, when my lawyer says to me, I want to talk about the quantum of my fees.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I get very worried.
Okay.
Usually it means something big.
Okay.
But if someone says something's a quantum leap, they usually mean a big leap. But actually, a quantum leap in physics is rather tiny. It's based on Planck's constant, which is about 10 to the minus 34, which is unbelievably tiny.
And as you know, I'm a huge fan of the concept of Planck time, which I think you scientists just invented because you couldn't figure out how the universe came out so quickly because it had to go faster than light. So we thought, Planck time, that'll get them.
Yes, and well, there might be something in that too. Yes, there's something unmeasurable about events shorter than Planck time.
Yes, exactly.
So that may be back in the days of the Big Bang, or the picoseconds of the Big Bang. That was what reigned.
And so you're going to be talking to us about quantum tonight. But I actually, it's often invoked spiritually. Do we mention Deepak Chopra earlier there? Because I can't imagine that all these things going on in an unusual way on the micro level can't occasionally influence something here on the macro level. Why can't that happen?
Well, it can happen, as we'll see tonight. Lots and lots of effects at the macro level.
Okay.
Well, at least at the photons of light level, which are visible to our eyes, so we can actually see the quantum effects in action. But it's true that they're very small, however. The energy of a photon is very small. Now, most people have probably heard about two photons interfering as they go through the Joule-Slit experiment, or two electrons, or two protons, so scientists are seeing whether they could perhaps get two viruses to interfere as they go through the slit, and maybe then two bacteria, maybe two fleas, and maybe two ants, and maybe two people. The problem is that you get decoherence. Quantum effects only occur when things are coherent, when they're all in the same frequency and the same phase. And once you get up to something as big as a virus, it's impossible to keep them in phase.
Oh, because there's too many atoms involved.
Yes, yes, that's right. And the wavelength gets too short, and you can't specify their position accurately enough. So no one's observed anything bigger than elementary particles, or rather composite particles like nuclei, I believe.
Just in a similar physics question, so since we're talking about particles of a light being aligned, so their vibrations are going the same through the slit at the same time, is this any sort of hint at maybe string theory? Maybe this maybe gives string theory another leg of the three stool to prove string theory?
Okay, there's a thought.
I just thought, because it's all about vibrations. They're vibrating at the same frequency so they can do it. Maybe if we are vibrating on an even more micro level, that there's something in that, or am I just having myself on?
Well, that's interesting, but I think that's at another level, because a photon is an elementary particle, as far as we know. Elementary meaning can't be subdivided. And all the characteristics of a photon are quite clearly set down by physics as it is. So string theory is not needed to define the photon, but however, it could well be that there's a deeper level to these things, and in that case, it could be strings, or it could be supersymmetry, or there's several things.
Because we can't actually, in any way, think of how we could possibly test string theory in any current way at the moment, could we?
Yes, it doesn't seem to make any predictions that would show up in this world, and as you know, science works very much by predictions. Firstly, the theory has to make predictions, and then they have to be tested and succeed. Or as Popper put it, it's the lack of failure that makes a theory stronger. So it has to be testable and falsifiable, and then if people attempt to falsify it many times and they fail to do so, that always strengthens the theory. But so far, string theory hasn't made any of those predictions.
Now, you've got your talk here about quantum for the skeptics in the pub here. What do you think is the one point, the one slide, the one graphic that's going to blow this room of people away? They're going to be walking out here going, "What in blew my tiny ape brain because of what?"
Oh, well, I think they're going to walk down the street afterwards seeing quantum effects all around them.
Wow. Yeah. So you'll become the Deepak Chopra of Surrey Hills.
No, I deal with the real world, unfortunately. There is a difference.
And if people want to study up on this, or maybe go to a good website that might have some sort of things that you're going to talk about in your talk, any idea where would be a good one to go to?
Oh, well, Wikipedia is always good. Or they can come along to one of my talks, and I'll be happy to entertain them for an hour.
And what phrase should they Google?
At what?
What phrase should they Google to find out what you're going to be talking about here tonight?
Well, it's quantum optics would be a good start, and the quantum world made visible is the title of my talk, because as I'll show, with something as simple as a diffraction grating, you can see the quantum characteristics of many different light sources. And what's more, classical mechanics, that's non-quantum, is at a complete loss to explain any of these sources that I'll demonstrate tonight.
And that's coming from a man wearing a purple paisley shirt in the classic 60s style. So well done, bro. I'd say that shirt's a quantum leap in fashion.
Did you see that UFO sighting that made the news? What did that latest study about alternative treatments really say? Is this photo making the rounds real or a hoax? Doubtful News is a unique website featuring news about pseudoscience, the paranormal, anomalies, and questionable claims framed with a skeptical view. Come visit doubtfulnews.com every day for news about cryptozoology, conspiracies, shams, scams, and more. Follow us on Twitter at Doubtful News. Critical thinking is essential in assessing today's news. Doubtful News helps you decide, can you really believe this stuff?
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone, and thank you to Angie Mattke all the way over there in Atlanta, Georgia, who ran from one room to another to do that interview with me a little earlier on, and I'm sure right now she's running around and having a great time at DragonCon. And yes, I hope I can be back there next year. Why not? It's been a long time since I've been there. 6 years, in fact. That's too long. It's such a lot of fun. Thank you to Heidi, and thank you to Maynard, of course, for your reports this week. Now, here's something that might interest fans of Pegasus. Origami Pegasus the Flying Pig, a model I invented for James Randi way back in 2007. Goodness me, little piggy's almost 10 years old. Well, coming up in October on Saturday and Sunday, the 29th and 30th of October, Folding Australia 2016 Origami Convention. And their special guest will be a well-known folder from Melbourne, Stephen Casey. But I'm delighted to say I'll be there, and my friend Gary Clark, we did a video together some years ago on Origami, a DVD. I'll be there to demonstrate how to fold Origami Pegasus and make lots of origami for everybody. I'll have copies of the DVD for sale as well as my origami jewellery, and my friend Gary will be demonstrating modular origami. So if you're a fan of origami and skepticism and the flying pig, why not check out Folding Australia 2016 Origami Convention? You can Google that, and I'll certainly put a link in the show notes for this week's episode. Hope to see you there, and if you do drop by, say hello, and I will fold you an origami pig. Why not? And for those people who have been writing in asking, yes, Henrietta and more to find. In fact, they're lying in a sunbeam right now. Where are they? Oh, there they are on the other side of the office. A little window and crack of sunbeam comes in across the floor, and of course they migrate to it. And then as the sun moves around, or the earth moves around, you know what I mean, the stream of the beam of light moves, so do they. So do they. They're very smart little cats, I think. But they've yet to really develop their meowing. Sometimes you'll hear a little meow, meow from them, but they've yet to develop the really strong, where's my food, meow, meow. I'm sure that's coming. And just before I go, don't forget the next Skeptics in the Pub here in Sydney will be a special Skeptic Zone Live. Anyway, that's next Sydney Skeptics in the Pub, the 6th of October, here in Sydney at the Crown Hotel. More information, www.skeptics.com.au. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for contacts, an archive of all episodes since 2008, and our online store. Please support the Skeptic Zone by following us on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, liking us on Facebook, and leaving a review on iTunes. You can also show your support by subscribing via PayPal for as little as 99 cents a week. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics Inc. or any other skeptical organisation.